What if I told you that one of the world's best airline and one of the worst are not only from the same tiny country, but also owned by the exact same company? While Singapore Airlines ranks among the most luxurious carriers on the planet, today we're starting with Scoot Airlines, a minimalist low-cost carrier known for its ultra-cheap fares and a reputation for barely offering more than a bus ride. Scoot has been described as flying inside a damp gym bag with wings. With passengers paying extra for what should be basic human rights, like charging your phone or even water, my expectations are grounded. So let's just hope the aircraft has more screws than I have doubts. The lack of generosity of Scoot doesn't start on board, it begins long before that. Even at the check-in in Denpasar, you can feel how little this airline is willing to give you. In true budget-style fashion, the lines drag on and the whole process feels less like the start of a journey and more like standing in line at a government office. While I don't want to complain, you get what you pay for, which obviously doesn't include bags or seat reservations. Therefore, they will absolutely try to sell you every add-on you could think of right at the check-in counter. Still, in my experience, Balinese people are incredibly polite. So, even when they try to promote something to you that you absolutely don't need for a price that makes no sense, they'll still do it with such a warm smile that you almost feel rude for saying no. But somehow I managed to stand my ground without ending up with a Scoot branded neck pillow or a seat upgrade. The friendly but slightly disappointed agent checks us in before we stumble through immigration and make our way through the departure area. If you haven't noticed by now, our flight today leaves from Denpasar, located on the island of Bali. Now, many know-it-all alternative travelers will roll their eyes as soon as they hear the name Bali. And I've been told so many times to avoid this island because apparently it's so overcrowded, basic and dirty. But to be honest, I couldn't disagree more. Maybe it's because I'm a Dutch digital nomad and wannabe content creator myself, but honestly I loved Bali and can recommend a visit. So if you decide to visit too, you'll probably land here at this airport, unless you arrive by canoe. Ngurah is Bali's only international airport and the second busiest in all of Indonesia. From here, you will find direct connections not only across Asia and Australia, but even as far as Moscow. Unsurprisingly, Denpasar is well connected to the tropical utopia they call Singapore. In fact, no fewer than 6 airlines are trying to cash in on this short route. Alongside Scoot and Singapore Airlines, there's Garuda Indonesia, AirAsia, Jetstar and, quite randomly, KLM, the Dutch flag carrier. There's a quite nice priority pass lounge at this airport where we're not only having a plate of chicken wings, but I also learned that Fanta apparently sells water. Hello. Now, while Scoot doesn't help you to get into lounges, it definitely helps you save some money. They're obviously a lot cheaper than Singapore Airlines or other full-service carriers with fares between Europe and Asia as low as $300. Interestingly, Scoot comes in with the 787 while Singapore Airlines is operating the 737 MAX 8. Now, honestly, I'd even pay extra just to avoid flying the MAX 8, and especially on flights below 3 hours, it doesn't make much difference in my opinion whether you choose budget or full service. However, especially on their wide-body planes, Singapore Airlines offers a premium experience, as we will see on the second flight in Singapore Airlines Business Class. Boarding starts on time, and while we acquired priority boarding for peanuts, somehow Scoot put us to boarding group number 4. But that doesn't matter because at boarding it's basically survival of the fittest anyway, and with the process about as chaotic as the traffic in Denpasar, this staff look a bit overwhelmed. But honestly I can't blame them, as I'm sure there are easier things to do than trying to control a herd of wild Bali tourists. Fortunately, at the jet bridge things calm down, and shortly after we set foot on the plane. Now, despite Scoot being a budget carrier, this stuff seems nice and the plane looks better than other Scoot aircraft I've flown on. This particular 787 named Super Scooter has less than 2 years on its back and certainly feels airworthy, or at least from what I can tell as someone with absolutely no relevant qualifications whatsoever. you can clearly see the low-cost approach in the cabin. Scoot is the only airline I've flown that doesn't offer in-flight entertainment on a 787. I do miss it a bit, but I get it. It's a way to cut costs, and these days most people have their own devices anyway. But I'd love to hear what you think about that. Like, do you mind flying without an IV on a wide body? Feel free to let me know in the comments. Apart from a few minor imperfections on board, the cabin overall is in no condition anyone could reasonably complain about. What some people do complain about, however, is the fact that Scoot charges extra for pretty much everything. That includes the Wi-Fi that isn't working, pillows, eye masks, phone charging, and of course food. Even water isn't included, though at $3 per can it's at least within a reasonable price range. That said, I still find it hard to understand why the beer costs nearly 3 times as much. But then again, Scoot is based in Singapore, and with local alcohol prices being sky high, it's probably no surprise that you end up paying $9 for a tiny can of beer. As someone coming from Central Europe, where canned beer in some shops is cheaper than water, that's a bit of a culture shock, but at least less beers mean less visits to the toilet, something that airlines still haven't found a way to monetize. The smell isn't exactly spa level, but everything's clean and functional. It has what you need to do, what you came to do. At this point, I have to state again that I really hate loo reviews, and I don't understand why people love them, and I think it's a bit weird if you like them. Back in my seat, I play around with the electronic window dimmer, and as you can see nothing, which means it works, even though I have no idea how. The thing is, no other aircraft has this, because no other aircraft is built quite like the 787, and that's a good thing. It's not exactly my favorite plane, and I totally get why some of you might want to stay away from it. Still, it's hard to deny what this plane has done for Scoot. The 787 is cheap to operate, doesn't guzzle fuel like older jets, and doesn't need many ticket sales to break even. That combination has opened doors for Scoot to fly cheap long-haul routes to many places like Australia and Europe. Many low-cost carriers have tried the same and failed miserably, and while it might seem strange seeing a top-tier carrier like Singapore Airlines dipping its toes into budget travel, it's actually a pretty clever move. They get to share know-how and still cover completely different market segments under one roof. Thinking of it as one family business, just with a rich, classy older sibling and a chaotic younger one that charges you extra to charge your phone. Nevertheless, I'm a bit disappointed that no one tries to sell lottery tickets, discount cigarettes, or extended car warranties mid-flight, as it is the case on most budget carriers back home. At Changi Airport, Scoot's home base, we get one last look at the plane and chance to reflect. Scoot isn't exactly generous, but it delivers. You don't get much, but you also don't pay much. And in a pricey country like Singapore, it's nice to see an airline offering ultra-low-cost travel, especially across continents. Still, Singapore's true aviation pride is its national airline. So if you think Scoot was wild, wait until I show you what a 5-star business class looks like and why it's almost too much. Just checked in. Check-in agent was very friendly. I got my boarding pass. With it I got access to the Miro business class lounge and also to the fast track, so for security. Like most premium carriers here in Barcelona, Singapore Airlines offers a separate check-in. It feels a bit weird to use it because 99% of my flights are in economy class, but I just act like I do that regularly and pretend I didn't just go in that for this flight. Now, when you hold a business class ticket from Singapore Airlines, you then have to wait with the ordinary people in security control, but you can go to the fast track. There were also quite a lot of people, but it was a lot faster. Another thing you can visit is the lounge. Now, Singapore Airlines doesn't operate their own lounge here, but you can go to the Miro business class lounge, which I struggled to find. So, finally made it through security. There was a crazy amount of people, and this was the fast track. The regular security would have taken maybe an hour, I don't know. But now I have access to the lounge. Miro lounge is the same you get access to with your priority pass. But I can't find it. While this lounge is quite nice, unfortunately it seems like everybody can enter, like with a priority pass or your supermarket discount card. Doesn't matter, like everyone was in and therefore it was super packed and the waiting times were quite long, so after some time I decided to leave and head to the gate. That can be tricky because Barcelona airport is quite big and I almost got lost at the duty-free area and then again while looking at the planes. Fortunately, I still arrived at the gate on time. Our brand new A350 is a bit late, but eventually we managed to board. On board I'm greeted by a huge seat that was something in between luxury and the dental chair because you could move it all the way. There are more settings to this seat than I have friends, and there are lights from every direction, so I'm sitting there looking like a Christmas tree. On board we also get more storage space than you will ever need, including this thing that I don't know how to close, and this thing that's not storage space but a table, and some more light and something that I don't know what it is, and some more storage space again. I get a bit sweaty checking out all those storage spaces, but fortunately we got a hot towel. Legroom is also not a problem and we even get some drink. Obviously I take the alcoholic one, and as the engines spool up and we roll away from our parking position, I'm starting to relax a bit. As I look out of the window and at other passengers, I wonder what one have to do to be able to afford such flights on a regular basis. Then again I get distracted by this thing that somehow just don't close. After some ASMR and no idea what I'm doing here, I get tired and want to stretch my legs. The legroom is great, but there's also some tempting space where you could probably put your feet. I'm not sure if I can put my feet there because my shoes are quite dirty, but eventually I decide to do it anyway. I awkwardly film myself a bit and then I try to check the Inflight-Entertainment. Now on Singapore Airlines you have quite a decent selection when you figure out how to turn it on. While it's the exact same controller like in economy class and also the same selection of movies, it still somehow feels more premium when I'm scrolling through the movies. Obviously scrolling through movies is hard work, so I get quite hungry and fortunately we just get served food.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now there is no hot meal currently, but we get a coffee that's hot but not that delicious, and when I'm finished eating I try to head to the toilet, but somehow I don't know how to open this table. Still, the toilet is quite nice and there are a lot of amenities. Back at my seat, I still enjoy the feeling of being in business class because I don't know when I will have that feeling next. Now obviously this is much nicer than Scoot. Obviously it's also a bit more expensive, even though this flight was only from Barcelona to Milan. But still it gave me the glimpse into a world that I probably not seen again for a long time. Scoot on the other hand is not that bad in my opinion as people say. Obviously you don't get the same amount of luxury as in Singapore Airlines, but you pay a fraction of that. Another low-cost airline from Asia that has also not the best reputation is AirAsia. Check out my video here and thank you so much for watching.